ACL tears are some of the most common injuries in sports, from elite athletes like Tom Brady, Lindsey Vonn, Tiger Woods, and Megan Rapinoe, to everyday teenagers playing high school sports and young professionals in rec leagues. It also seems like everyone has a parent, aunt, uncle, grandparent, or someone close to them who's dealt with knee pain. That's no surprise, considering about 4.7 million Americans have had knee replacement surgery, which is more than the entire population of the Seattle metro area. Clearly, this knee of ours has some design flaws. And the crazy thing is, we're actually seeing more knee problems now than ever before. So, what's going on here? Nathan Lents, a biology professor at John Jay College in New York, wrote a whole book about evolutionary shortcomings in the human body. He says the root of our knee problems goes back about 3 to 4 million years.
We evolved from walking on 4 limbs to walking on 2 limbs really quickly in the evolutionary blink of an eye. And anything you do quickly, you don't do well.
Of all things, climate change likely pushed this rapid transformation.
4 to 5 million years ago, the rainforest shrunk in Africa. That's when our ancestors sort of came down from the trees, found themselves in the grasslands and having to adapt to that.
Walking around on 2 legs offered a ton of advantages to our ancestors.
We can walk with much greater efficiency than the other apes can. There was a number of other advantages. Of course, it freed our hands, which was the big one. We had big brains, and now we had hands that were free to develop tools and other things, carry things around.
And this transition to upright walking happened in less than 500,000 years, which is a tiny period of time considering the evolution of walking on 4 limbs had stretched back hundreds of millions of years to early mammal vertebrates and even their tetrapod ancestors. Now, in many ways, evolution did an amazing job honing the mechanics of the human knee, considering how fast it emerged.
The knee itself, from a mechanical standpoint, is what we call a 4-bar linkage. Throughout the range of motion, the ligaments both on the outside of the knee and the inside of the knee work together to evenly distribute load, and they function with the articular cartilage and the spacer cartilage, or the meniscus.
That's Dr. Aaron Critch from the Mayo Clinic. He specializes in orthopedic surgery and sports medicine.
The knee takes many biomechanical forces. Take something like walking up the stairs or down the stairs, for example. We put about 6 to 8 times our body weight through our knee joint. So the knee is very intelligently designed, obviously, to be a stable structure that can help cushion all the forces that we see with normal life, but also with athletic activities like jumping, sprinting, cutting, pivoting. And it's quite amazing that the knee gives us a lot of longevity and allows us to do a lifetime of activity.
So where did the evolutionary design fall short, or at least not do its best? First of all, there is just more force being put on our 2 knee joints, but with ligaments that still closely resemble the ligaments of our ape-like ancestors.
Evolution didn't really strengthen them, and so you have very thin ligaments that are doing an enormous amount of labor. And what happens is anytime you change your weight, particularly if you're moving quickly and you change directions, if your leg straightens during that change in momentum, you're in trouble because this little tiny ligament is having to bear hundreds and hundreds of pounds of force, and it just simply can't do it.
But it's not just the extra weight that is problematic. There's also additional issues associated with the way the lower part of the human body is shaped versus our ape-like ancestors and relatives.
With the adaptation for upright walking, one thing that needed to happen to become smooth walkers on 2 feet is your legs need to come straight down from your pelvis and be as close together as possible so that you can have what we call as a striding gait, where our center of gravity does not bounce back and forth very much with each step. And if you've ever seen a chimpanzee walk around on 2 legs, they can do it, but they swing their legs out in these wide steps and their center of gravity bounces back and forth from the left to the right with each step.
On the one hand, going bipedal demanded a more narrow pelvis, but on the other hand, the pelvis had to remain wide enough for our heads to get through the birth canal. As our brains later began to grow and one of our most advantageous traits became our intelligence, that fit got even tighter. Evolution never fully resolved this issue. This is one of the reasons that giving birth is comparatively so risky for humans versus many other primates, and one of the reasons why so many women today undergo cesarean sections. So one of the ways that we evolved a more narrow center of gravity without narrowing the pelvis too much was pulling the knees in. that angled our thigh bone, increasing something we refer to today as the Q angle, or valgus angle. Angling that thigh bone lets us move efficiently and gracefully, and at higher speeds relative to our ancestors lumbering around on all fours. But that movement also puts extra pressure on our knees. Our knees hold together pretty well most of the time, as other parts of our bones, muscles, and ligaments have evolved to support them. But the knee also has a glitch of sorts. When we put it through certain stresses in sports or even modern daily life, sometimes the whole contraption just can't deal with those stresses. And that's when we get some of these really nasty ACL tears.
When we look at injuries in our young athletes, it's really when they're coming down from like a jumping position.
Dr. Critch has meticulously studied the forces that produce ACL injuries in a controlled lab setting.
We not only look at the knee, but we also look at their entire body mechanics. We know that athletes that get into risk for injuries like an ACL tear, for example, tend to have poor mechanics, either in their hip or their core, that leads to abnormal stresses in their knee.
Our ape-like relatives, on the other hand,
a snapped ACL would be almost unheard of in any other ape. So a lot of the regular injuries that we have, including and especially sports injuries, are related to the unique features in our joints.
There's another factor too, and that's just age. Those big heads of ours have allowed us to develop modern medicine, public health infrastructures, and dynamic industrialized economies that have drastically increased our lifespans. Over just the past handful of centuries, we have pushed our life expectancy from about 30 years old in pre-modern societies around the world to about 79 years old in the United States today. And all of those additional years are putting extra wear and tear on our knees.
10 to 15 million doctor visits a year are for knee problems. As we age, they become more prevalent. So if you look at adults over the age of 60, for example, 15% will have symptomatic arthritis.
Injuries and wear and tear that come about later in life are largely in evolution's blind spot, in the sense that you've already probably passed on whatever genes you're going to.
Modern technology has also given us more food to eat while allowing us to live much more sedentary lives.
We have an obesity epidemic, and those elevated body weight forces translate down to the knee. So we are seeing a direct link that patients who have an increased BMI definitely have an increased risk of injury.
And even for seasoned athletes, a long day can increase the risk of injury.
When a particular individual is at risk is really during times of fatigue. An athlete will be in a tournament for a while, play a lot of hours, have a lot of contact hours, and that seems to play quite a bit of a role.
But there's also a lot people can do to prevent these injuries, to take advantage of our body's strongest design components while protecting ourselves against its weaknesses. Dr. Critch is working on creating prevention programs that do just that.
We really try to look for athletes that are at high risk. For example, female soccer players we know are some of the highest risk athletes for knee injuries. Prevention programs that look at conditioning and targeting the way they move, the way they land from their jumps, definitely are successful.
Cutting-edge technology is also helping doctors refine treatment techniques for injuries.
We're becoming a lot better in diagnosing problems. For example, MRIs have become really incredible, the level of detail that we're able to see in the knee. And we can really diagnose sometimes early, or sometimes if it is a significant injury, there's a lot more data that we have on terms of how they should be treated.
So those big brains of ours are already coming through once again to help us deal with some of the design drawbacks in our knees. And who knows, maybe within a few more generations, we will figure out how to overcome those design flaws altogether. It might sound crazy today, but wouldn't the average person in 1500 think the idea that most people could live to 79 sounds pretty crazy? So hey, why not dream a little, and in the meantime, make sure to take care of those knees. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, help us out by liking, subscribing, and dropping us a comment. And to stay updated on Cheddar's latest, hit the bell next to that subscribe button too.